Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere a little smoky, a little drafty, and extremely straw-filled. We're heading back to the Viking Age, not for the battles, not for the boats, but for the beds. That's right. Tonight, we're investigating the supremely unglamorous but surprisingly effective reason why Vikings slept on straw, and genuinely loved it. And you probably won't survive the coziness of this episode unless you already sleep like a log wrapped in wool. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I'm always curious who's falling asleep with a shield maiden on their mind. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push open the door of a Viking longhouse, just a large wooden structure, low to the ground, covered in thatch, its outline sagging like it, too, is ready for bed. Inside, the air is warm but dense, filled with the scent of old smoke, sweat, roasted meat, damp wool, and, yes, straw. You shuffle forward, eyes adjusting to the flickering torchlight. The central hearth glows with quiet coals, casting orange shadows up the blackened rafters. Around the edges of the room, you start to see it, sleeping platforms. Not beds, exactly. More like shallow wooden boxes filled with straw, furs, and the occasional discarded boot. You sit down carefully on one, your weight pressing into the straw with a soft crinkle. It shifts beneath you like a polite animal trying to make room. It smells slightly grassy, a little dusty, but not unpleasant. And it's warm. Not from heat, but from insulation. From doing its job well, night after night. Historians still argue whether every Viking household had proper straw beds or if some families just spread straw directly onto the wooden floor. But the consensus is that straw was everywhere, and not just for livestock. It was the mattress of choice, the flooring solution, the insulation layer, and the general answer to, where should I lie down? You wiggle a bit. The straw adjusts. It pokes a little, yes, but gently. It molds. It holds. It rustles with every breath, like a lullaby sung in dry grass. You look around. There are others already asleep. Wrapped in furs. Using folded cloaks as pillows. The snoring starts early and proudly. Someone shifts, kicks off a boot, then curls deeper into their straw nest. A dog stirs by the hearth. A child mumbles something in Old Norse and promptly rolls into someone else. This isn't luxury. It's layered comfort. It's shared warmth. It's good enough, which, for people who spent their days rowing longships and hauling firewood, was probably more than plenty. You lie down fully now. The straw whispers beneath you. The weight of a woolen blanket settles over your chest. The air inside the longhouse is still. The wind brushes gently outside. And the fire crackles on, like it knows not to be too loud. So tonight, as your own bed holds you, not a straw mat, hopefully, but just enough, remember this, rest doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be warm. A little quiet. And maybe smell faintly of hay. You don't move right away. The straw beneath you shifts just enough to let your shoulders settle in. It's not plush. It's not silent. But it's surprisingly agreeable, like lying in a warm basket that crackles every time you breathe. And now you begin to realize something important about this Viking bed, the straw isn't just filler. It's the whole thing. There's no mattress, no box spring, no carved headboard with decorative antlers. What you're lying on is the bed. It's the structure, the cushion, the insulation, and sometimes even the smell of the season. Because Vikings weren't tucking into luxury suites. They were building their beds from the ground up, with straw. You reach down and run your fingers through it. It's dry, flattened in some places, puffed in others. Underneath, you feel a few wooden planks, rough, nailed down without ceremony. On top, there's nothing fancy. Just more straw. And perhaps, if you're lucky, an old animal pelt tossed on top. Historians still argue whether all Viking homes had raised platforms for sleeping, or whether many people just made cozy nests right on the floor. What they agree on is this: straw was cheap, available, and wildly versatile. You hear a soft crunch as someone nearby turns over. Their straw whispers back. This material, basic as it is, had some real benefits. It held heat in the winter. It let air pass through in the summer. It didn't trap moisture the way wool might. And if it got too dirty, you just dumped it out and got more. You sit up slightly and glance toward the far end of the room, where a few older folks are huddled together in a shared bed space. Their straw is deeper, maybe newer. They probably cleaned it recently. Viking spring cleaning meant hauling out armfuls of old straw and spreading fresh bundles from the barn. A chore, sure. But also a kind of reset. A fresh start. And it wasn't just any straw. Rye straw was common. Barley straw too. Each with its own texture, its own scent. Some folk even mixed herbs or dried flowers into their bedding, not for decoration, but to keep pests away and maybe, just maybe, help them fall asleep with dreams that smelled like summer. One fringed Norse folk tale tells of a woman who wove her bedding from blessed straw, claiming it warded off nightmares and visits from mischievous house spirits. Whether it worked or not is debatable, but hey, if it smelled nice and kept your back from freezing, who was complaining? You flop gently back onto your straw bed, and the familiar rustle greets you like a sleepy friend. It doesn't complain. It just rearranges. Accepts you. Warms under you. There are no springs to squeak, no sheets to untuck, no wrong side of the mattress. There's just what is, and it's more than enough. And somehow, that makes it easier to rest. Because when your bed doesn't promise perfection, you don't expect it. You just lie down and let go. So tonight, if your dreams smell faintly of rye and old timber, if you feel the crunch of grass beneath you and the heat of a nearby hearth, don't shift. You've already arrived. You stretch out again, limbs easing deeper into the straw as it creaks and sighs beneath you. You can feel individual stalks adjusting, some poking slightly at your ribs, others settling under the weight of your shoulders like they're giving up, but in a good way. Now, your head needs somewhere to rest. You look around, expecting a pillow. There isn't one. Not a plump, stitched, feather-filled thing like the ones we know today. Instead, there's a folded wool tunic, maybe someone's cloak, possibly still warm from the evening's wear. You grab it anyway. It's a little lumpy. Smells faintly of lanolin and damp firewood. But when you tuck it under your head, it does the job. And really, that's all a Viking would have expected. Because for all the myths of dragons and daring raids, bedtime was a matter of practicality. Historians still debate whether Vikings used dedicated pillows or just improvised each night with whatever was soft, warm, or dry. Some graves show traces of wooden headrests, planks, gently curved, carved with a few simple motifs. Others suggest bundles of grass wrapped in cloth. But across sources, one thing is clear: the Vikings didn't overthink it. You glance over and see a child curled up on a fur, their head resting in the crook of an older sibling's arm. No pillow. No complaints. You smile. Because honestly, it works. The head needs support, sure. But it doesn't need perfection. A good day's work and a soft enough surface are often more than enough. There's something liberating about it. No memory foam debates. No contouring gels or firm versus soft pillow discourse. Just a folded cloak, and the knowledge that it'll smell a little like campfire, a little like wool, and eventually a little like sleep. You shift a bit, adjusting your makeshift headrest. It crinkles slightly. Not luxurious, but oddly reassuring. The world outside hums on, wind through wood, a low grunt from a nearby goat, someone coughing softly into a blanket. It's all normal. Expected. This is communal sleep, after all. You're not separated by walls or doors or even privacy. You're surrounded by family, friends, maybe livestock, and always the smell of warm bodies, straw, and night. One fringe Viking tale describes a man who carved his own wooden pillow and swore it gave him dreams of home, even when he was raiding in distant lands. He carried it with him like a talisman, not because it was particularly comfortable, but because it reminded him of where his head belonged. You rest your hand gently on your own folded tunic, wondering if, someday, someone will describe your sleep setup with that kind of fondness. The fire across the room pops. Someone snores. Someone mumbles in their sleep. The air shifts and settles again. Your head doesn't sink. It holds. Just enough. So tonight, if your dreams are filled with tunics tucked under your neck, old wooden beams above your head, and the faint smell of wool that reminds you of something you can't quite name, let them come. You've got everything you need. You don't sleep alone. Not in a Viking longhouse. Not unless you're a chieftain or someone with an uncanny talent for pushing people away, which, judging by the warmth and breath surrounding you, you're not. You open your eyes for a moment, just to check, and yes, there are feet sticking out from the blanket beside you. Someone mumbles softly. A dog shifts in its sleep, tail thumping once against the straw. Somewhere behind you, a baby gives a brief, sleepy squawk and is hushed by the softest of shushes. This is not solitude. This is communal sleep. And in the Viking world, that's just how it worked. You share your straw mattress, or your section of it, with your family. Sometimes extended family. Sometimes guests. Sometimes, if it's winter and there's not enough heat or space, you even share it with animals. Not as intruders, but as fellow heaters. Fellow dreamers. You scoot over a bit. Not because you need to, but because you're used to it now. The rhythm of shared sleep, adjusting, settling, scooting, breathing together. Historians still debate how Viking longhouses divided sleeping arrangements. Some had raised wooden platforms along the walls for the wealthier members of the household. Others simply tossed straw and furs across the dirt floor, then bundled in. Either way, the idea of everyone tucked away in their own room with a nightlight and a white noise machine. Absolutely foreign. You shift again and feel someone's heel brush your shin. You don't mind. The longhouse at night is like one big slow-breathing animal. Snoring, stretching, crinkling with every move. It's not disruptive, it's reassuring. You're not alone. You're with. And that changes everything. You remember a fringe saga that described an aging warrior who couldn't sleep without the sound of someone else's breath beside him. After years of sharing fires, ships, battles, and beds, the silence of being alone made his chest feel too big. Too empty. So he took to sleeping beside the hearth, just to be closer to the goats. You chuckle a little. Quietly. Because it makes sense. Even now, you find yourself listening. Not to noise, but to rhythm. The soft flaps of sleep. A child's shifting sigh. The faint click of embers in the fire. It's a kind of nighttime symphony, composed entirely of presence. You pull the fur a little higher over your chest. It smells faintly of the outdoors. A mix of hide, salt air, and old smoke. Not unpleasant. Just, natural. This is the Viking version of bedtime, no goodnights whispered across hallways, no doors clicked shut. Just bodies settling beside each other, one by one, until the straw beneath them reshapes into something like a nest. You close your eyes again. And the room breathes with you. So tonight, if your dreams place you shoulder to shoulder with people snoring into the same heavy blanket, or curled around a warm dog with hooves tapping nearby, don't flinch. That's not clutter. That's comfort. You lie still now, warm under wool and fur, straw crackling softly beneath your hips like a low fire made of grass. The longhouse hasn't changed, but something has shifted. The hush has deepened. You begin to notice it, the sounds of a Viking night. Not just the communal breathing and the occasional sleepy murmur, but the background music of this world, soft, natural, persistent. Wind brushes the thatched roof above you, its tone low and steady, like someone humming from a great distance. The wooden beams creak faintly as the house settles. You hear a rhythmic thud, someone's bare foot twitching in a dream. A pig nearby gives a little snort, then goes quiet. This is the kind of silence you don't find in silence. It's layered, full of texture. Historians still argue just how noisy or peaceful a Viking longhouse would have been. With animals indoors, hearths smoldering, and whole families sharing space, it wasn't exactly a spa. But somehow, these overlapping sounds created their own calm. You turn on your side, and the straw welcomes the movement. It doesn't try to hold you still. It just rearranges itself politely, letting you settle into a new rhythm. A dog's claws click against wood. Somewhere, a chicken rustles in its enclosure. And through all of it, the fire holds its quiet vigil, its gentle hiss like a lullaby for the entire room. There's no such thing as perfect stillness here. But there's something even better, predictable quiet. The kind of quiet where your brain doesn't leap at every sound, but instead sighs and says, yes, that's normal. A footstep is no threat. A snore is no alarm. It's all part of the pattern. You reach behind you and pull the fur tighter. It's rough but soft in the way old fabric gets, worn into obedience. The weight is soothing, like someone placing a steady hand on your chest, reminding you that you're not expected to do anything but rest. One fringe theory among modern historians suggests that people slept better back then because the sounds of the night were constant and communal, not intrusive, but rhythmic. The longhouse breathed as one organism. There was comfort in the consistency. And without clocks, there was no pressure. No countdown to sleep. No racing against morning. You slept when you were tired. Woke when you were ready. Or when a goat stepped on your foot. Whichever came first. You listen again. A cough. A crackle. A breeze. And then, almost imperceptibly, you hear the sound of someone whispering to themselves in their sleep. Just a string of syllables, meaningless, beautiful. It reminds you that rest here isn't just physical. It's communal memory. The room holds your breath, your weight, your dreams. And it offers them back as warmth. So tonight, if your dreams echo with the slow symphony of distant wind, wool shifting on skin, and the comforting sounds of lives asleep nearby, let yourself lean into it. You're not surrounded by noise. You're being held by it. You open your eyes again, not because you need to, but because something inside you is curious. Not restless. Just aware. The room is still dim, lit only by the lazy glow of dying embers, and the occasional shaft of moonlight slipping through the thatch. You shift under the fur, inhale deeply, and realize that this entire longhouse smells familiar. Not in a way you can place. But in a way your body recognizes. Straw. Smoke. Fur. Earth. This is the aroma of Viking comfort, and surprisingly, it's kind of wonderful. You sit up slightly, bracing on one elbow, and take a deeper breath. The straw has a dusty sweetness to it, something between dry hay and sun-warmed linen. It's not perfumed, obviously, but it's not unpleasant. Just, real. There's also the smell of old wood smoke, the kind that sinks into beams and doesn't go away even after the fire dies. And the soft scent of wool, worn and weathered and vaguely sheepish. Historians still debate whether these smells were considered cozy or simply inescapable, but either way, they define the atmosphere of Viking sleep. You reach down and run your hand through the straw again. It crackles gently, releasing a bit more of that sweet, dry scent. You imagine a Viking family stuffing fresh straw into the bed platform at the start of winter, lifting handfuls of it, laughing as bits of it float through the air, sneezing once, then settling in for the dark months ahead. Straw wasn't just used for sleeping. It was a seasonal marker, a kind of domestic milestone. Fresh straw in the bed meant a new chapter of weather, of light, of routine. You lie back again and realize that your entire bedding experience is essentially biodegradable. A renewable sleep system. At the end of the season, it would be emptied out, tossed onto the midden heap, and replaced. Not because it was defective, but because it had done its job. One fringe Norse remedy book even suggests hanging dried herbs in the straw to aid with breathing and protect from spirit visitations, possibly a poetic way of describing seasonal allergies, or perhaps nightmares. Either way, imagine drifting off to the scent of sage, tucked into straw, the fire flickering across your toes. You snuggle deeper into your spot. The furs are holding your body heat now. The straw has molded into a perfect cradle. Every inhale brings in that ancient blend of grass, smoke, warmth, and faint animal life. You can't smell soap or candle wax or linen spray. But you can smell presence. And that's enough. The scent of sleep, here, isn't engineered. It's accumulated. It tells you where you are. It reminds you of who you're with. And somehow, it quiets your mind. So tonight, if your dreams carry you into a room where everything smells like earth and fire and last year's harvest, don't try to scrub it clean. Let it wrap around you. This is what cozy meant before the word existed. You sink back into the straw again, deeper this time, the warmth radiating not just from the fire, but from the quiet satisfaction of a body slowly turning into a blanket. Your limbs are heavy now, the furs snug, and you begin to notice what you're not wearing. Which is, anything particularly formal. Or, let's be honest, much at all. Because in the Viking world, bedtime didn't come with pajamas. It came with layers, and the rule was simple, wear what makes you warm. Or don't. Nobody's judging. You glance around the longhouse. Some people are wrapped in cloaks they wore all day. Others are under pelts, completely invisible except for a socked foot peeking out. Someone seems to be sleeping fully clothed, sword belt and all. A child nearby is snuggled so deep into a reindeer skin you wonder if they might be a reindeer. Historians still argue whether Vikings had dedicated sleepwear, but the general consensus is that most people just slept in their clothes, tunic, trousers, maybe a thick wool shift. Undressing was reserved for special occasions or warmer seasons. In winter, you stayed wrapped. You adjust your own layers. Your tunic bunches slightly under your hip. You pull it smooth. The neckline scratches a little, but not enough to matter. Your legs are warm, your feet tucked under someone else's blanket corner. You watch as a man across the room kicks off his boots without even opening his eyes. They land with a thud. Nobody flinches. One woman removes a belt from her waist and lays it beside her, then curls into a ball under a pile of animal hides. It looks wildly uncomfortable. It also looks perfectly normal. Because sleep here isn't about elegance. It's about efficiency. You're not here to impress anyone. You're here to survive the night without freezing your toes off. You roll onto your side and feel your cloak wrap around you, settling into the grooves of your shoulder and spine. It's heavy. Comforting. Slightly musty. Like something that's lived through 10 winters and doesn't need to prove anything. One fringe Viking tale tells of a traveler who refused to remove his chainmail before bed. He claimed it gave him dreams of strength. Others said it just gave him bruises. Either way, he woke up smiling. You chuckle softly. There's something beautiful about how unstructured Viking sleep was. No sheets to tuck in. No pajamas to button. Just warmth. Fur. Whatever you wore. Whatever you had. You exhale, long and slow, your breath visible in the cold air before it disappears toward the rafters. You feel done. Not just for the day, but done in the way a well-worn cloak settles into its final fold. So tonight, if your dreams dress you in woolen tunics, mismatched socks, and the comforting scent of reindeer hide, let them. You're not dressing down. You're just ready. You lie there, bundled under wool and hide, legs tangled with straw, and begin to wonder, what happens when a Viking sleeps away from the longhouse? Because not every night was spent on solid land, with a hearth nearby and livestock snoring in the corner. Sometimes, the bed was a deck. The blanket, a sail. The pillow, a bundle of ropes. You shift slightly and feel the straw squeak beneath your hip. But now, in your mind, it's not straw. It's a boat plank. Because tonight, you're climbing aboard a Viking ship. Long, sleek. Oiled wood beneath your feet. The scent of salt and pine in the air. And somewhere on that deck, a tired warrior is tucking himself under a cloak and calling it a night. You step carefully between ropes and shields, and find a small space to sit. There's no mattress. No bedding. Just a raised edge near the stern where someone has tucked a spare tunic into a makeshift pillow. You take your spot, pull your cloak tight, and rest your head on the bundle. The boat rocks gently beneath you, like it knows bedtime is sacred. Historians still argue whether Viking seafarers slept on deck or at temporary camp on shore. Likely, they did both. But when the sea was calm and the stars were out, there was no reason not to nap in the boat itself. You lie back now, staring up at the stars. The sky is massive. Cold. Endless. But you feel small in the best way. Held between sea and air. Next to you, someone coughs softly and pulls their hood over their eyes. Another man, already snoring, uses his shield as a windbreak. It works surprisingly well. A few sheep are tied to the stern. They bleat once. Then stop. Even the animals understand that this is rest time, and not just for humans. You tuck your hands inside your sleeves, feel your body radiate its own warmth, and listen to the boat creak as it sways against the dock. The sound is repetitive, soothing. No waves tonight. Just the memory of movement. One fringe account from a saga tells of a crew that slept with gold beneath their cloaks, treasure taken from a distant shore, used as a footrest while they dreamed of home. Whether true or not, the image is vivid, a warrior curled around a coin bag, not for greed, but for comfort. You pull your cloak tighter. You don't have gold under your head, but your bones are tired, your boots are off, and that's enough. Because Viking beds weren't always built. Sometimes they were borrowed from the world around them. A ship deck. A mossy patch of ground. A fur thrown across the dirt floor of a stranger's hull. The bed was never permanent. But sleep? It always found a place. You close your eyes now. The stars spin gently overhead. The deck creaks. The world rocks you into sleep. So tonight, if your dreams sail across calm waters, with your knees tucked under your chin and your cloak pulled to your nose, don't stir. You're not lost. You're just at sea, and deeply at rest. The deck still rocks beneath you, but in that half-dream state, it begins to blur. The creak of oars fades. The stars above soften like candle flames behind sleep-heavy lids. You're not entirely awake anymore, but you're not quite asleep either. Which, oddly enough, means you've entered a space the Vikings knew intimately. The space of dreams. You roll onto your side, cloak wrapped around your shoulders, and feel the world thrum gently under you. You're not in a longhouse now. Not in a boat. You're drifting somewhere else. Because to the Norse mind, sleep wasn't just recovery, it was travel. Historians still debate how literally Vikings took their dreams. Were they messages? Warnings? Invitations from beyond? Maybe all of the above. What's certain is that dreams were never just dreams, they were information. You sit up, inside the vision, and the fire has returned. You're back in the longhouse. Or perhaps it never left. The walls flicker with shadow. The straw shifts under your legs. A man near the hearth stirs and begins to speak, not to you, but into the room. He's reciting a dream. A battle. A wolf. A woman made of wind. The others listen, nodding slowly, like they're putting puzzle pieces together. Dreams weren't kept to oneself. They were shared. Unraveled. They had meaning to be found. You lie back again, letting your own thoughts drift. A raven appears behind your eyes. A snow-covered field. A hand reaching for a blade but finding instead, bread. Strange. Comforting. One fringe account tells of a seeress who claimed she could enter others' dreams simply by sleeping near them, like catching a mental scent and following it through straw and story. She snored, apparently. Loudly. But everyone forgave it. You curl deeper into your furs and wonder what it would mean to have your dreams overheard. Not judged. Just witnessed. A shared night, not just of space, but of imagination. Some Viking households left offerings at night, a carved piece of wood, a bone smoothed from touch, not to the gods, but to the dream spirits. A way of saying, come gently. You smile in your sleep. Because the line between dream and world here is thinner than most. A man might wake and say, I rode a stag through fire, and others would simply nod, then ask, did the stag speak? It's not sarcasm. It's genuine interest. You turn over. Your straw shifts. And now you're walking through that snowfield again, the one from your dream. The raven calls, and you don't answer. You don't need to. It's just reminding you that rest is a place, not just a process. The Vikings understood that sleep wasn't silence. It was a conversation with another world. So tonight, if your dreams take you by the hand and lead you somewhere cold and strange and quiet and somehow exactly right, don't resist. You're not escaping. You're exploring. You turn once more, slowly, so as not to wake whoever is snoring gently nearby. The fire is still glowing, barely now, just enough to outline the fur at your feet and the wooden beam above your head. The longhouse breathes slowly. So do you. But now, the light outside is different. Not darker. Just longer. You sit up and pull your cloak around your shoulders, not out of urgency, but curiosity. Because the night doesn't feel like it's ending anytime soon. And in Viking lands, that's not unusual. You've entered the realm of seasonal sleep, where winter nights stretch like wool and the rhythm of rest takes its sweet, sweet time. You move to a bench near the back wall, where a few folks are still curled up tight. They haven't stirred in hours. Or maybe they've stirred several times already. That's the thing. In the far north, where the sun disappears for days, sleep isn't a straight line. It's a loop. A pattern. A gentle back and forth between dozing and waking, with long, quiet pauses in between. Historians still debate whether segmented sleep was a natural result of darkness or an intentional practice. But in these northern latitudes, people often didn't sleep once per night, they slept twice. First sleep. A waking period. Second sleep. You shuffle near the hearth and sit beside a kettle warming over the embers. Someone hands you a mug. It smells faintly of herbs, maybe something they foraged, maybe just old mead warmed back into comfort. You sip. It doesn't matter what time it is. Because time here isn't measured in hours. It's measured in glow. In quiet. In how many times the wind has tapped at the thatch roof. You lie down again, not to sleep deeply, but to rest. Maybe you'll doze. Maybe you'll just think. In Viking homes, both were perfectly fine. The long winter nights were made for it. One fringe account describes couples whispering stories during that waking window between first and second sleep, low-voiced legends, made-up sagas, dreams retold. No rush. No performance. Just shared stillness. You pull the fur back over your legs and stare up at the rafters. You think about nothing in particular. Then about everything. Then about nothing again. And this, too, is part of sleep. No pressure to conquer the night in a single stretch. Just trust that the body knows what it needs. There are no clocks in the longhouse. Just your eyes. Your breath. The rhythm of coals and company. Eventually, you will sleep again. And when you do, it won't be forced. It will come like another blanket being gently pulled up to your chin. So tonight, if your dreams begin, pause, wander, and return again, if they feel more like waves than windows, let them. You're not waking too soon. You're just sleeping like a Viking. You open your eyes, but just barely. The fire's a memory now, glowing somewhere deep in the embers, and the longhouse has folded itself back into sleep. Even the wind outside sounds like it's whispering, not yet. You stretch under your furs and shift in the straw. It sighs beneath you. Someone stirs nearby and then goes still again. You lie there, quietly aware, and then it hits you, this bed isn't just a bed. It's an heirloom. Because in Viking culture, even sleeping arrangements had value. You sit up slowly, and there in the corner, near the carved beam, is a slightly more elaborate bed platform, raised, with animal carvings along its edge. It's not fancy by modern standards, but in this world, it's a sign of something passed down, something kept. Historians still debate how often Viking beds were inherited, but archaeological finds and written sagas suggest it wasn't rare. A well-built sleeping space, particularly one carved from strong wood or built into the family longhouse, might be listed in a will, passed from father to son, from mother to daughter. You walk over and trace the edges of the frame. The wood is worn smooth, not by polish, but by presence. By decades of bodies curling into sleep. By the weight of blankets, of babies, of heavy winter nights. The grain of the wood feels like memory. You sit on the edge, and it creaks softly, but it holds. It's been doing that for a long time. One fringe saga tells of a warrior who refused to sleep in any bed but his great-grandfather's, claiming it gave him better dreams, more restful sleep, and the confidence to ignore most of his chores. Whether it was the bed or the attitude is unclear. But it worked. You lean back onto the furs and realize, this isn't just a surface to sleep on. It's a repository of rest. The straw might be changed every season. The furs might be swapped. But the platform? That stayed. It became familiar. It became yours. The kind of place you return to after travel, after war, after harvest. The kind of place you miss when you're gone. Even the cracks in the wood tell stories. A nick from someone's sword, dropped in exhaustion. A scorch mark from a too-close coal. A shallow dent where a baby was rocked before sleep. This isn't nostalgia. This is function turned into family. You imagine an elder lying in this very spot, tucking a child under the same fur you now hold. Telling them a bedtime story, likely one involving axes, ravens, or magical goats. You smile. Because Viking bedtime wasn't just physical. It was emotional continuity. A link in the chain of shelter, warmth, and shared space. You rest your head against the raised edge of the frame, your eyes drifting shut again. The longhouse breathes around you. The straw shifts. The floor holds steady. And this bed, this humble, creaky, handed-down bed, holds something bigger than sleep. It holds belonging. So tonight, if your dreams place you in a space that feels older than you, quieter than the world outside, and exactly shaped for your bones, don't question it. That's what a good bed does. Even if it's made of straw and memories. You let your hand rest on the carved wood a moment longer, fingers tracing a groove that feels almost like a signature, though it's more likely just time doing what it does best. The longhouse remains still, but your thoughts keep walking. You shift back to your original spot in the straw and lie down again, letting it accept you with that familiar crackle. And as your body settles, your mind turns to a different kind of Viking bed altogether. One made in haste. One not meant to last. You're now imagining the warrior's bed, a temporary nest laid on the cold earth, beside a blade. Because as much as Vikings knew comfort in their longhouses, they also knew how to sleep wherever they could. And sometimes, that meant dozing with one hand on a weapon. You sit now by the edge of a camp. The fire is small, surrounded by stones, its flames low and flickering. Around you, men sleep on cloaks, their boots still on. Their helmets lie beside their heads like watchful sentries. The only mattress is straw tossed from a sack or pulled from a nearby field. You lie down on one such patch. It's coarser than the longhouse straw. Stiffer. But still better than cold dirt. You curl onto your side and pull your cloak around you. Your sword is tucked just beneath your arm, its hilt like an awkward second pillow. Historians still argue how comfortable these makeshift warrior camps could be, but they weren't designed for luxury. They were about function, about catching sleep in the pause between movement. These were beds of vigilance. You hear the night around you, the creak of trees, the murmur of a horse tethered nearby, the occasional pop from the fire. No one snores here. The sleep is light. Alert. But it's sleep all the same. One fringe story tells of a berserker who insisted he could only sleep with his axe beneath his knees. Supposedly, it balanced his dreams. Supposedly, it made him snore in perfect rhythm with thunder. You listen for thunder. Nothing yet. But the wind has picked up a little. It carries the scent of pine and something sharper, anticipation, maybe. You glance around at the other sleepers. Some are already halfway in dreams. Some lie awake, watching the stars through half-lidded eyes. There's no bedtime ritual here. No shared story. No warm straw turned by gentle hands. Just quiet. And readiness. And even that has its own comfort. Because a warrior's bed may be temporary, but it still matters. It still offers that pause. That breath. That moment when even the strongest among them admits that sleep is a weapon too. You curl tighter under your cloak. The straw doesn't mold the same way. The ground is harder. But you still feel safe. Not from softness. From certainty. So tonight, if your dreams take you to a clearing in the woods, where your pillow is a shield and your blanket is a battle-worn coat, don't flinch. You're not preparing for war. You're just proving that even warriors need to rest. The fire in the clearing fades to a gentle glow. A few embers rise, spiral once, and disappear into the dark. Around you, the warriors sleep lighter now. Not in fear. Just in habit. Sleep is a guest they've learned not to startle. You shift slightly on your cloak, and the straw beneath you rustles just enough to remind you, you're still tucked into earth and season, but now your thoughts drift again, back to the longhouse, back to warmth, back to the smallest beds of all. Because while warriors slept beside weapons and chieftains on carved platforms, Viking children curled up in floor nests, bundled tight like squirrels in burrows. You return now to the longhouse. The morning hasn't come, but something softer stirs. You move toward the far corner, past the large fur bundles, toward a space barely wide enough for your knees. There, nestled between two storage chests and a folded loom, is a shape so quiet, it almost disappears into shadow. A child, barely 4 or 5 winters old, bundled in wool so thick it's hard to tell where the cloak ends and the child begins. You crouch nearby. The straw in this little nook is different, shorter stalks, packed more tightly, less likely to poke soft skin. There's a layer of fur beneath, maybe rabbit or lamb. And there's quiet, not just in sound, but in energy. The stillness of someone who has finally fallen into deep sleep. Historians still argue how Viking children were raised, whether they had designated beds or simply shared the space wherever warmth was available. But in households this tightly knit, sleep wasn't segmented. It was interwoven. A toddler might fall asleep curled against a mother's side, wake briefly beside a sibling, and roll into a pet goat by dawn. There were no cribs. Just community. You watch the child shift slightly, their fingers curled around a straw doll with lopsided legs. One of the legs is braided with red thread, maybe luck, maybe just decoration. It swings with their breathing. Their cheeks are flushed. Their breath soft. Their dreams, who knows? One fringed Norse lullaby speaks of the moon watching over, small warriors in waiting, its light pouring into corners and stitching golden dreams into their heads. You glance upward toward a sliver of moonlight cutting through the roof. It lands not far from the child's nest. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe the lullaby was right. You lie back nearby. Not too close. Just enough to hear the child's steady breathing. It blends with the sounds of the longhouse, the fire cracking gently, the creak of timbers, the distant rustle of someone turning in their sleep. These are the rhythms of care. The straw nest, though simple, is its own kind of architecture. Curved for comfort. Tucked beside known things. Filled with enough warmth to outlast even the longest Scandinavian night. You close your eyes and listen again to that breathing. Even. Steady. The sound of a young life so thoroughly wrapped in safety that fear doesn't even bother knocking. So tonight, if your dreams find you curled in a corner beside someone very small, wrapped in wool and shadow, just stay there. You're not a guest. You're part of the nest now. You stay in the corner a little while longer, warmed not just by the firelight but by the quiet rhythm of a child's sleep beside you. It's a kind of stillness that needs no guarding, no ritual, no words. Eventually, the child snuffles once, rolls deeper into the straw, and disappears back into dreams. You rise softly, straw clinging to your tunic, and return to the center of the longhouse where the adults lie in their quiet sprawl, like driftwood pieces arranged by memory. You stretch once, yawn into your sleeve, and let yourself settle again. This time, your thoughts wander back to the straw beneath you, not for comfort, but for meaning. Because by now, you've begun to understand, this isn't just bedding. It's identity. And it didn't end with sleep. You shift to the side of the room where the light falls on a bundle, a flattened bedroll wrapped in cloth. You untie it gently. Inside, you find straw. Fresh. Tidy. Sprinkled with small leaves. This isn't tonight's bed. It's an inheritance. Because in the Viking world, even something as humble as straw could be passed down. Historians still argue how often bedding made its way into wills, but there's no question that sleeping spots held value. Especially when built into the home itself, raised platforms, carved headboards, frames attached to the beams. Some beds were permanent fixtures, crafted by hand, named in family stories, and given, not sold, to the next generation. You sit on a low frame now, one foot on the ground, one tucked beneath your knee. The wood is darkened by time, but strong. Its joints don't creak, they settle. A rolled cloak rests at the head. Beneath it, a name is carved. Not large. Not fancy. Just initials, pressed in with the tip of a blade. You run your thumb over the grooves. They've faded, but not vanished. Just like the person. A fringe law code from an early Norse region mentions a sleeping shelf being part of dowry negotiations, not for display, but because it was the place where rest is kept. It was something you brought to a new life, something that grounded you, quite literally. You lie down on the bed frame again. It feels no different from the one you used before. And yet, it does. There's history in it. Not big history. Not battles and bloodlines. But the kind of history that rests under elbows and curls around knees. The kind that lingers in carved edges and the rhythm of straw bundles replaced each season by the same hands, until one day those hands belong to someone new. You close your eyes, and the straw whispers beneath you, like it's learned every story you haven't heard yet. The weight of sleep begins to gather. Not because you're tired. Because you're home. So tonight, if your dreams begin with the creak of wood that knows your shape and the rustle of straw shaped by generations, don't question it. That's just the longhouse remembering who you are. You let out a long, steady breath. Not because anything happened, but because nothing has to anymore. The fire is nearly out. The house is dark except for the silver thread of moonlight cutting across the straw. The room has folded into its deepest quiet. You shift once more, not to leave, just to get more comfortable. And for a moment, you think about the simple genius of it all. Straw. Fur. Cloak. Sleep. You didn't need a mattress catalog. You didn't need a sleep playlist. You just needed the day to be done, and the world to give you a place to lie down and let go. You glance around the longhouse, this wooden spine of a building that has cradled dreams for centuries. There's no snoring now. No coughing. No stirring. Everyone has found their groove in the straw, and the straw has accepted them. Because that's what it does. The straw bed is humble. Forgiving. Ephemeral. It molds. It shifts. It pokes. It settles. And it says, without needing to say it, you're allowed to rest now. Historians still explore the Viking relationship with ritual, with gods, with war, but it's in these quiet hours, when everything stops, that the heart of the culture shows. This was a people who worked hard, traveled far, fought bravely, and slept deeply on a bed that grew in the fields beside them. Even now, your straw whispers under your weight. Not protesting. Just participating. Another night. Another breath. Another layer of presence pressing into the past. One fringe Viking folktale tells of a woman who carried a fistful of straw from her childhood bed with her everywhere she traveled. Not because it was practical, but because it reminded her what it felt like to be still. To belong. You curl your legs in slightly, adjusting the fur over your shoulder. The air is cool now, but not biting. The fire is nearly gone, but not out. Sleep comes like a tide moving through straw. Gentle. Relentless. Welcoming. So tonight, if your dreams are filled with rustling straw, soft fur, and the quiet weight of a roof built with care, let them come. You're not pretending to be a Viking. You're just remembering how to rest. Now everything is still. Let your arms fall heavy. Let your thoughts loosen. Let your breath come softer, like wind through an open field. You've walked a long, slow path through straw and shadow. Through sleep the way it used to be, rough, shared, and sacred. Not optimized. Not calculated. Just earned. Feel the ground hold you. Not tightly. Just enough. Feel the weight of blankets, or imagined furs. The scent of memory. The hush of warmth settling around your shoulders. This moment needs nothing from you. No decisions. No to-do list. No perfect pillow. Just presence. Just straw beneath your back. Just firelight in your mind. Just the softness of a people who learn to trust the quiet. You don't need to think anymore. You've been part of the longhouse. You've curled beside warriors and children, wrapped yourself in cloaks and silence. Now let the day go. Let the breath slow. Let the night be long enough. No alarms. No worries. Just you. Just straw. Just sleep.